All right, and we are here again, and we are back again. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
And this is the Back Again podcast. This is the only review show where we take a sequel from the past and find out if, in fact, it was worth going back again. We are continuing on our comedy sequel list. And today, we are doing the follow-up to the 1991 The Addams Family, and we are doing Addams Family Values.
Gomez.
Cara mia.
Marvelous news. I'm going to have a baby. Right now.
Are you in unbearable pain? My darling, is it torture?
Oui.
It's a boy. It's a girl.
Gomez!
What news? Father, what is it?
It's an Addams.
Addams Family Values comes out in 1993. It's once again directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. It's starring Angelica Houston, Raul Julia, Christopher Lloyd, Joan Cusack, Christina Ricci, Carol Kane, and Jimmy Workman. Addams Family Values picks up 9 months after the last Addams Family, where a new baby is being born. And after they get that new baby, they decide that they need to hire a babysitter. And through the process of hiring that babysitter, Fester falls in love with her. Unbeknownst to him, she's actually
A black widow.
a black widow who goes around finding rich men to marry and then murder. And she's going to try to take their wealth at the same time that the kids are at a summer camp.
Sure.
So there you go. It's like, you know.
Plot breakdown.
That's literally the A, B, and C plot.
Well, you left out Gomez and Morticia, but yeah, for the most part.
Well, to be honest, they don't really have anything to do in this movie. They're really funny in the movie, but they don't really have a plot besides helping initially.
Well, the problem is that they're kind of the foundation. So they need to be there. They're kind of the most important part of the story and the family dynamic, but that kind of leaves them without much to do. They're not very glamorous when it comes to plot importance. But I guess at the same time, the whole thing does kick off when Morticia gives birth.
Well, they're also probably more in the story in the first one, because the story is about the family. And then there's obviously just like the plot of the people trying to scam the family, but they're mostly the family. In this one, the family separates and it almost becomes three kind of storylines, like the Fester, Joan Cusack storyline, the kids at summer camp, and then also the baby.
Gomez and Morticia with the baby.
The baby. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the only thing that really happens to the baby is that he turns blonde for like a little bit.
Yeah.
And then that's like a concern, I guess.
I think that's what the child and by extension Gomez and Morticia are essentially relegated to the C plot. They're the runner. And then what happens is, I believe the Fester Joan Cusack was supposed to be the most important plot point.
It doesn't get introduced until like...
Well, it gets introduced kind of early, but what happens is we spend a lot more time with the Wednesday Pugsley B plot than was anticipated, I believe. So instead of A and B, they kind of both become parallel stories. And then Gomez, Morticia, and the baby are always kind of like the runner. Because that's where the whole energy for the plot and the inciting incident comes from, is Fester feels inferior to Gomez because he's so much more suave and he's got Morticia. And Fester is the older brother, I believe. So he is like wondering if he will ever find love. And the whole plot is able to happen because of that insecurity. The Black Widow, Joan Cusack, Debbie, is able to use him so effectively because he is so cartoonishly desperate.
Well, I guess the point is like, in the sequel, all the characters are mostly like separated. They're not really a family in the story. Now,
that's good because that gives them a motivation. The motivation is to get reunited at the end.
It's a very Empire Strikes Back
Exactly.
sequel where everybody's kind of separated for all of Act 2, and then they slightly come back together for the end of Act 3, if you will.
It's funny you say that because I think this is more of a Force Awakens type of sequel.
Well, because it's a soft reboot.
Because it's a soft reboot, yeah. And I don't know when we want to talk about it, but I do want to talk about how similar this is to the first one.
Well, then, like, this is a good point to kind of like redirect it. So we're doing comedy sequels of this. I started off with the Blues Brothers one because that's, in my opinion, like a cult comedy classic. Now we're doing the follow-up to The Addams Family, which is already in its sense kind of like a reboot because they're going from TV to film. But you considered this like almost a comedy classic, the first one.
I consider the second one a comedy classic.
Okay.
The first one is essentially a blueprint for a good comedy classic.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good enough tonally that it functions. Addams Family Values is really, I think, the best piece of Addams Family media out there.
Well, this might be a rare comedy sequel that we do on the list that has like a higher Rotten Tomatoes score, and is actually than the original, and then is also actually just like considered funnier. It didn't make a lot of money at the box office a second go around. So yeah, I think it's rare because how many times on this list are we going to do sequels that are better than the original as far as comedies go, especially?
We'll see.
You know, I would argue that the first one really doesn't have a plot. to be honest, but it doesn't matter because that whole movie is enjoyable because of the family. And now that we like the characters, what the writer and the writer that returns, I think he did punch-ups on the script for the first film, and now he just writes the second one on his own.
Okay.
So this one definitely now is like, okay, you like these characters, now let's put them all in these situations and we can just enjoy watching them be like really funny and just do nonstop one-liners.
Wait, in the sequel
right?
or the first one?
In the sequel.
Well, in the sequel, it's essentially you like all these characters, now let's give them an actual plot to like...
Sure, but at the core of each of these films, the plot is so reliant on Fester, and I don't understand why.
Which is interesting. I feel like it's because he's kind of the odd man out.
Let's ignore the fact that they do this whole amnesia thing where, like, you know, they start him in a wig at the beginning of the movie, and I'm talking about the first movie, right?
one, yeah.
You know, and then it becomes him realizing that he's actually part of the family. He just had amnesia, like the amnesia was real.
What a weird way to start like a movie
about a family.
Yeah, it's like,
know?
okay, we open up, one of the main characters doesn't realize he's the main character and doesn't become the main character until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and then if you look at the sequel, he starts as the main character as far as being like part of the family.
And then he becomes another person because of
another woman now.
Like, there you go. That's how you handle that character.
So it feels like they just did in the sequel, they just took that Fester storyline and they just reversed it.
They just did it right.
A little bit.
You can tell they're essentially like, what didn't work in the first movie? And they fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of cheating because to me it's interesting to kind of look at what a sequel is. If all you do is go back and redo the first one and just fix the loose ends and essentially make it a soft reboot, is it really a sequel? And you can have that argument, you know, whichever way you want it, but it's just so effective when it comes to the case of Addams Family Values that I think anyone can appreciate it.
And it's like, especially if we're continuing on about this Fester storyline, like there's always going to be a female influence. And in the first one, I don't remember the actress's name, but she plays like the fake mother of Fester.
So yeah, Mother
stand-in. Yeah, and she's really funny in her own right because she's really silly in that movie.
Yeah,
I do think that Joan Cusack is a lot stronger in the sequel, and she leans into the role and just, I guess, has fun.
Yeah, and what they do in the sequel is they make it more of a romantic interest.
Yeah,
which is just it's simpler, which means it's just easier to handle in a comedy like this.
Well, I think this is also going to be a different kind of series that we do on this because even though the plots are kind of dumb and they don't make sense, I don't really care that much about it because I think there's enough comedy in both these movies that are just like they hold it together. Mm-hmm. Like I watch the movies for the characters. I don't watch the movies for the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the second one, it's perfect because you're just watching characters just do a bunch of different wacky things in the whole movie. Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, they do a good job of just, I guess, making the world bigger in the sequel. If we just want to, like, before judging it a little harsher, maybe get out some positives. Like, we've already said that we thought it's really funny. But they do make the world bigger. You know, they add a new family member. We kind of get to see them outside in the real world at that summer camp, which is nice. Kind of fish out of water.
And in the suburbs with Fester.
Yeah, in the suburbs with Fester. I wish there was like more of the ongoing gag of Joan Cusack trying to kill Fester, but he won't die.
Yeah, they pick a few beats and milk them out instead of doing a few like more shorter beats, which I think would have been better for a show like, a movie like Addams Family.
Yeah, and I would say like the sequel, just to go back of talking about like the one-liners, like every character gets so many one-liners. Yeah, and it's like really funny,
and they're all really good.
Yeah.
Oh, Wednesday's at that very special age when a girl has only one thing on her mind. Boys.
Homicide.
Good night, Debbie.
Good night.
Scream if you need anything.
I'd do anything for him. At his request, I would rip out my eyes. At his command, I would crawl on my belly through hot coals and broken glass.
Why wait?
All right, children. I've had it up to here. Now you just answer one simple question. Where is that baby?
Which part?
That's what I really appreciate about the sequel is you can go back and every time you are finished watching it, you have a new favorite line. Because there's just like so many that you just miss on a watch through because they're just so rapid fire and they're just delivered so off the cuff.
Well, it's also kind of weird because I don't even know if this franchise would exist. It's almost like, because I didn't know anything about the Addams Family as far as like the TV show goes. Like I knew it was a TV show, but if I watched it, I was like way too young. So when you watch this movie, you're kind of like, the first one, I mean, you're kind of just like thrown into a world without any, and you're just like, okay, I guess, I mean, this is the family saying this is who they are and I just have to accept that and then go along for the ride. And then once you accept it, then the second one has a lot of fun. But, you know, I still don't know what the Addams Family does. In 2 movies of watching this, I know that they're wealthy for some reason. I know that they are connected to the dead in some way too. Like the hand, for example. Like I asked you, I think when we were watching the first one, like, oh, is that hand like his dad's hand? And then I think you said even you're like, it's just Thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Which, by the way, just to talk about Thing a little bit, like they insinuate that Thing has been, essentially jerking off Fester at one point with a line.
I've dreamed that sometime maybe there might be someone for me. There's Thing. Oh, I know. But I want more. Legs, elbows, head.
I think it's more so played for cute, even though it's raunchy. And that's the thing, is like, yes, it's raunchy, but they play it for cute. And
Yeah.
you can get away with that.
They're talking about like virginity and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is funny with Christopher Lloyd's old ass. I would say that
If you don't know what sex is, how do you know we're not having it right now?
Have you really never had sex?
Never.
Well, then, how do you know we're not having it right now?
I would say that Gomez and Morticia were definitely much more like romantic in the first one. And maybe that could have been a storyline for them. In the second one was maybe they were losing a little bit of the romance since the baby was born. I don't like have a lot of complaints about the sequel, but like the story is suspiciously like, it's almost like the story's like, well, we got enough plot. We don't need to worry about it. We're just going to rely on the other beats. But you still could have had a follow-up of like their romance in the second one. They kind of just hit the same beats in the second one, but less of them.
It's weird because when you're adapting shows like this, there are like unspoken rules you have to follow. And it's the rules that they would have when they're writing the episodes. And it's like a Bible. It's like when you're writing an episode, it's like, here are the things you can't do. And it's like in Star Trek, it's like Spock can't act emotionally. It's like, okay, that's in the Bible. That's rule number 57.
When I was a kid, I never liked Star Trek when I was a kid.
In Addams Family, I guarantee you one of the rules was Gomez and Morticia can't ever be at odds with each other. Their romance has to be perfect. And so that's how they play it in the movies. And that's why they have to do the conflict almost through Fester, is because the family has to be so perfect, because it is a sitcom family from the 60s, even if it has that gothic twist on it. So in order to get any conflict, it's got to come from outside the family, or at least tangent to the family.
I mean, I get it. It's just at the same time with doing so many of these sequels, it's just the same beat again. It's just Gomez only has any kind of tension, I guess, if Fester's the one causing it. And Fester's always just coming in and out of his life.
Yeah.
And they don't really have that many scenes where they're like brothers together, besides when they connect in the first one for the first time during that dance.
But they hit it hard with that dance.
They hit it hard with that dance, which I guess they did cut down for time. Like they did an original screening, and that dance, with people were like, that's too long of a dance, so they cut it down.
It's almost like the fight scene in They Live.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just every time he has any kind of drama happen to him, it's only through Fester. So it's just kind of like, we just did that. Can we do like a different story now? Like, can we see what Fester looks like when he's not the main cause of the problem, but he's maybe one of the possible solutions, or he's somebody that's reacting to the problem as well? And if they're really brothers that are finally reunited and they're now expanding their family, why not present a new situation where the brothers have to work together instead of just separating them again? But I don't really care about that, because at that point, I'm just having fun watching Wednesday at summer camp. So, it's like, or I'm having fun watching Joan Cusack be a murderer who's jumping into this like death-inspired family, who's not affected by the dark arts because she's so dark herself.
I'm good with my hands.
It was also, one thing I have noticed about this franchise is that they do scenes almost like out of order. And I mean that in the sense of like,
I know you noticed it once, but did you notice it multiple times?
well, like in the original film, there could have just been a scene where the mom finds Fester after he comes out of the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
And like open the movie there.
Yeah.
Instead of just throwing us Fester in a curly wig saying like, you look just like this guy.
Yeah, there's no establishment that this is or isn't Fester. We're just kind of like in the dark about who this character is. And then it's not even until the end with like a throwaway line of dialogue that they finally do confirm that it was Fester this whole time, and not just some poor schmo who just happened to look weird and now is being indoctrinated into this family.
So then in the second one, the scene that I guess felt out of order was the Joan Cusack scene in the final, like they're all like in the final third act where they're all tied up in the electric chairs and she's basically monologuing. And then she's just she's literally got a PowerPoint.
Yeah, a slideshow.
I felt like that scene should have been like in the middle or the beginning of Act 2 or something like that. Where
No.
like when she's getting rid of like Wednesday and the kids or something.
No, it's the
felt
villain
so-
speech. It's the exposition dump at the end. It's intentionally lazy to be comedic.
Well, it's just weird because they already do it in the beginning with her with the television show about
Murder.
Yeah.
3 very different women with one thing in common. Murder!
What was that show called? Just Murder?
I think yeah, it's just like most infamous murders or something like that.
Unsolved Murders.
Unsolved murders, sure. So they're telling her story as she's like watching it.
Yeah, she's watching
and
it.
she's watching it.
God,
So it's
this is
like
great.
That's like, you know, for me that's like the scene where it's like, okay, I understand who she is, obviously.
Yeah.
And then when we're going forward, we know her intent. But so then they double down on that in the mono. It's almost like they didn't have anything else to talk about where they're all in the chairs. So they were like, let's just have Joan Cusack have fun, and she'll just monologue with like a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And double down why she's doing what she's doing. But we already know that.
But that's,
you know what I'm saying? It's like that's why
they're
it
not
feels
looking
like...
at how to make this rational. They're looking at what would it look like when someone who's wholesome evil, like the Addams family, faces someone who's truly evil. It's almost, you're not watching it because you want Joan Cusack's character is interesting. You're watching it because the dynamic's interesting.
I know.
You have someone who's ugly on the outside but good on the inside is the family, and then you have Joan Cusack who's ugly on the inside and pretty on the outside.
But that thing that you just said, where it's that dynamic between the like them facing off, I didn't feel like they actually faced off. I was only watching because of the performances and the characters.
That was the problem. Is I feel like
I
feel like someone was like, "This is what's interesting." I feel like the writer was like, "This is what's interesting. It's the dynamic."
Yeah.
And then the director, who I feel like did such a good job, just didn't realize that. I thought the director kind of felt like, "No, Joan Cusack's performance is what's interesting."
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of like the divorce. It's like a divorce, and I'm the child caught in the middle. And I'm like, well, the director's kind of right because Joan Cusack is being good in the scene, but then I feel like I wanted more of that because the whole dynamic is just Carol Kane commenting.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, there's something there, fine. But it's like they could have done more with the whole family. That was one moment that I wanted to be played less for gags and more kind of like, you know, like let's just focus on good storytelling. Let's not focus on the comedy as much. Or let's let the comedy kind of stand on its own.
Well, I think the mistake they did was they took her out of the house. Like, I liked the idea of adding a babysitter to this family and then watching the kids basically trying to do stuff, but then Joan Cusack's not fazed by it, or she can kind of read it from a mile away. And then from that, she tries to infiltrate Fester and then maybe try to get Fester to turn on the family. Like, I know we're going to do this double beat anyway of Fester. But when she took him out and then they go to like...
Oh, the suburbs?
The suburbs,
Yeah.
yeah. I like all that stuff, but I think I preferred the stuff more where we get to see that dynamic, where she's in the house but not fazed by anything.
Mm-mm.
That way, when we face off in the final act, she's so accustomed to the house that she almost knows how to use it against itself.
Well, that would require the third act being a little bit more long.
And
they
bigger.
really condensed the third act.
Oh, it's like literally just a gag of the baby getting loose
Yeah.
and then showing up to the final battle.
It's a Rube Goldberg machine that involves a baby.
And then he chewed through the wires that fast between like it's like just one shot where he lands, she pulls the switch.
It's already separated.
Yeah, the electricity goes through all the wires, but then the wires are already separated.
The rest of the movie's so good, I can forgive that.
I know, but it's just interesting because all these things that we see like in this sequel, I think we see in other ones, but I guess this is just an example where it's also just really funny, so we don't care.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Transporter 2.
Yeah, where it's
little
like
bit, you know?
everything else is so good, it's fine that some things don't land. And there are like, you know, when you have 90% great jokes, which is way more than most comedies, those 10% that aren't good are gonna suck, but they're not gonna like ruin the experience like a lesser comedy would. Going back real quick to what you said about it being more interesting seeing Debbie, Joan Cusack's character, in the Addams house, I disagree because I liked seeing Fester outside the Addams house in the suburb world that she was trying to force him into. The romance stuff where it's them alone in the house is kind of boring. But when it's them with other characters, when it's them like moving into the house, I love it when they're moving into the mansion. That's a great scene. When there's a third element, or when it's Debbie and Fester and they're telling Gomez and the family to go back home, like that's a great element. Seeing Fester outside his comfort zone, away from his family, away from the house, and away from Debbie is great. When he's alone with Debbie, it's a little bit or when he's with...
Well, we've never even seen his comfort zone because he doesn't get it until the second half of the first movie. And he's only in it in maybe the first half of this movie.
That's true, but we can assume what it is because as much as it is engaging, it is one note. It is like they're the family that like the macabre. There's not much else to it, but it is interesting enough on its own.
Well, like you said, there's great elements and there's great scenes. And I think that's the thing is I agree. I think they're all great scenes. But then you just remember sometimes like, oh, but there's really not a great plot.
Yeah, exactly.
To it. Or at least there is a good premise for a plot, but then the way they execute it is more just putting like, well, this would be a funny scene and this would be a funny scene.
It is a good premise, and I like that dynamic where, and you can, that's why you can kind of, at least I can personally forgive them for redoing it for the sequel, where it's like someone compromises Fester, it's a woman. Morticia and Gomez are kind of they're the foundation, so they're the ones who kind of have to deal with the brunt of the energy, and that leaves the children, Wednesday and Pugsley, to kind of be the ones that come in last minute and save the day, or at least...
They don't save the day. They don't really...
Well, I guess I misspoke. They see through the charade.
Yeah.
The parents are a little bit more, because they're not stupider, but they're a little bit more forgiving of other people. I don't know. The parents are easier to deceive. The children are more cynical.
Well, the children really have nothing to do with the plot of this movie. They really just have their own. It's almost like they have a separate movie where it's literally the two. It's like a spin-off, right?
Well,
there's
a parallel plot because of the romance. At least it's tied together that way.
Well, yeah. With Wednesday's romance, but like once again, I feel like that could just be a spin-off. But I like all that stuff at the summer camp.
Summer camp, I think, is the strongest element.
Oh yeah, it keeps the movie together because it's just fun watching those two kids outside of their
all the actors'
zone.
Dynamics are great because the two counselors whose names unfortunately I don't know.
Yeah,
it's them and then David Krumholtz with Wednesday and Pugsley. Those five. Oh, and then Harmony.
Yeah.
So those 6 characters really pull together a sequence.
Plus, it's really good with this franchise that all the side characters that exist like in the quote-unquote real world, they are arguably just as ridiculous in their own way, right? So there's never really like a straight man in the world anywhere. Everybody's kind of crazy in their own way, and that's like that comedy helps not only the sequel but the whole franchise because you have then great characters like everyone you just said.
Well, I feel like what happens is you kind of have to choose your own straight man, where it's like who is the most... The movie's not telling you who the most rational character in the story is. You have to decide who the most rational character in the story is.
Well, I think you take the Addams family side how they represent people in the real world. When you do see those camp counselors, it's like, yeah, I'm rooting for Wednesday to like get revenge on them.
Yeah.
And everything. Because those camp counselors also have some great one-liners.
And I wouldn't make a birdhouse.
Why not?
I just wanted to read.
Not on my time, Four Eyes.
But then there's the reverse of that. Oh, wait, no. Then they double down on it with someone like Debbie, where it's like, okay, I'm siding with the Addams because the reverse of that is a literal killer.
Even though I would say, I bet you the Addams family have actually, they're almost like cartoon characters because they just don't seem to die.
That was a weird thing that they added, and I can't tell if that worked comedically or not, where Fester is cartoonishly indestructible.
But I think that might be, and it would have been interesting if they actually just explained this in one line, like they are immortal.
Immortal? Well, that's the thing, is their graveyard's full of people who have died, so they're definitely not immortal.
Well, maybe they're just like, since they work with the dark arts, they only die from like, they live a certain lifespan, but they can't die from like, harm.
Yeah.
Exactly, So that would have been, just add a line in there, just
That's
to kind of
never
get that across.
That would be like a nice little throwaway thing, because they throw away so many other things.
Yeah.
But like, throwaway as in like, explain very simply. But yeah, that's never explained. It's funny, but it's not. It's kind of like the plot.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
At the summer camp, it's a summer camp, but why is the show that they're putting on about Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I've seen this movie so many times I never made that connection. It's a summer camp with a Thanksgiving play in it. So these characters are all hypothetically in like, whatever, July, going to see a Thanksgiving play.
I'm assuming they picked like a Thanksgiving play because it was generic enough to be a kid's thing. And also you have the angle of whatever side Wednesday's on, she can then like start an uprising, especially if it's like a historical kind of reenactment. And then I have another question. How does Thing drive the car?
No, that's fine. That's great. I love
That shit is
that was Christopher Lloyd's best performance is when he's acting across from Thing, driving the car in the runaway, or I'm sorry, in the getaway.
So now just to kind of go into the budget in the box office, because what's weird is, we like this sequel probably more than the original. So the original has a $30 million budget and they make $191.5 million at the box office.
That's a lot more than
It's a lot of money. Even though it didn't get very good reviews and people didn't really they're like, oh, it's just kind of like there's not really a story. And
I wonder why people were so excited to see it.
I don't know. Maybe it was just because they're big fans of the TV show, or
From
maybe
the 60s.
Yeah, or maybe they like the actors that were coming into it. I don't know. There's probably like people that dress up for Halloween, or like I'm sure there's like cult followings, or they just like the characters at least. And then Addams Family Values has a $47 million budget, but it only makes $111 million at the box office. So it doesn't even like.
That's still okay.
It's not as, if you're doubling also for marketing, that's not a big return. Obviously, Raul Julia, his passing away was the main reason why they didn't make a third one, but I guess...
They did make a third one. They did make a third one.
Not with this cast.
Not with this cast, yeah.
But I would also assume it's because, they didn't make a lot of money, and, there's some issues with like the production companies that were making this, and like being worried that it wasn't going to make a lot of money, and like the first one makes a lot of money, they get all excited, and so then they immediately greenlight the second one, even though they didn't have a story or script yet. They make that one, doesn't make that much money back, and then like we're done. But critics really liked the second one a lot more too, which is...
Did we do Rotten Tomatoes ratings?
Well, the Rotten Tomatoes score for the first one has a 65%.
The first one has 65. That seems high.
Yeah, and then the second one, Addams Family Values, has a 76%.
Okay.
So it's just slightly, it's like 10% higher. But I don't know. I feel like if things were different, I think a trilogy probably would have been good for this franchise. They could have tried
to actually done a good
story. Yeah, I wonder what they would have done for the third one. Fester, what's he going to get into this time? And the last thing I'll say about Fester is I like Christopher Lloyd, but he's definitely my least favorite character in the family.
No, he is one of my favorites. I
don't know.
He is a slave to the plot. He doesn't really seem to have a lot of fun in the performance as everyone else seems to, because he is kind of like...
What are you talking about? He's like bouncing around like a cartoon character.
I guess in the performance, yes, but I guess in the range, it's kind of like he doesn't have any character moments.
Yeah.
Every moment he's on screen, he's driving the plot forward or explaining why Gomez is going crazy now or something like that.
His switch in both movies happens so fast. Like when he decides to save Gomez in the first one, it's like a switch, right? And then in the second one, he just runs back home after Debbie tries to kill him, and he just goes like, "Brother, I was wrong," and then that's it. He's back.
She had to kill him. She had to try to kill him 3 times for him to realize that he was wrong.
You could do a spin-off show with Fester called "Guess Who's Back."
Yeah.
Fester, where is Fester?
He's right here, Moshe.
It's me, Gomez. I've tried to be someone I'm not.
I'll say the one thing. I think my favorite scene. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not my favorite scene, but it's the scene I laughed the hardest at the first time I watched, was the sword duel in the school during the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't laugh at a joke or a moment harder than in the sequel than I did at the sword duel when all the blood was spurting out.
Oh yeah,
that made me laugh so hard.
That is a really good moment.
But the sequel it was more consistently funny.
Well, you just reminded me that they kind of then, I guess, try to redo that beat at the summer camp by putting on the Thanksgiving play.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even register.
Yeah, there's so many parallels. I'll tell you what, we bash sequels for being lazy, for just being copy and paste. This is the most copy and paste sequel, and we are praising it because at least it is funny.
I don't know if it's on the level of Escape from LA as far as how many scenes are kind of like exact replicas from the first one.
Exactly.
I would say at least there's not a big dance number between Gomez and Fester.
Yeah, that's the thing is, they take down some of the stuff that's because it's not just a copy and paste. It's they correct all their mistakes. They learn from their mistakes.
Why not just make this movie instead of the first one?
Well,
but then just don't send the kids to summer camp and then still have your play and everything.
Well, because when they're actually at summer camp, the play has more purpose in the plot.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used as the climax, the big climactic number. I'll tell you what, one thing I do think was very annoying was there were 2 moments in the sequel where it's a diegetic music where I hope I'm using that word right, where it's in the scene and it's literally the Addams Family theme song.
Oh, yeah.
So like Lurch is playing on the piano the Addams Family theme song. And at least in the first one they didn't do that. When he's playing at the organ, it's actually like creepy, like operatic music. In the sequel, it's just and it takes you out of it in such a weird way.
Yeah.
Where the comedy constantly takes you out of it in a fun way. But then when you hear that song in the universe, it's almost like grating.
It wouldn't be noticeable if they didn't use it so much.
Yeah, the thing is, they did it twice. I can't remember.
I think there's more than 2 times, honestly. That they maybe even just play the song like in the background, like non-diegetically.
Yeah.
Like it's just playing like a different variation of it. Like, because I think when Gomez and Morticia are dancing. Yeah, that's like another one. I don't know. What else do you want to talk about this movie?
Oh, I'll tell you one thing I love. And this is one reason, and it'll seem ridiculous, but this is a legit reason that I like the sequel better than the original. The Angelica Houston's lighting is so much more consistent and so much more distinct in the sequel. And that is honestly one of my favorite... I don't even think it's a gag or like elements. It's just one of my favorite things I've seen. Is that they recreate that soft light on Morticia in every single shot she's in, every wide, every single. It's that lighting.
Well, you're talking about the specific gag where she like steps into the light, right?
Well, no, I'm talking about her lighting specifically. But there is one where, I don't know if it's intentional, but they have her lighting set up without her in it, and then she steps into it.
Yeah.
And it's like a perfect mark hit.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh.
Sorry. You have enslaved him. You have placed Fester under some strange sexual spell. I respect that.
So as always on this podcast, we ask 3 questions that lead to a final decision of was it worth going back again? And the first question is, does it work as a sequel? If we're being fair and we're actually like respecting these rules that we created, it doesn't, right? Because it's like a reboot. And it just does the whole thing.
Well, that's the thing
again.
it does not build on the characters. It reestablishes them.
It reestablishes
and it does it in a
them.
better way.
Yeah.
But it's not yes-anding, it's or insteading.
Exactly. And it's definitely like a bigger world. And I mean, they have a baby and like the family, expands and stuff. But I don't like the first one feels like it was about the family. And by the end of the movie, they became a family. So the second one didn't really feel like the family faced any challenges. It just felt like, let's just put the family all in different situations, and then it's fun to watch them react. And then when they come back together at the end, I didn't really miss them being apart.
Yeah, and it's
you know
like,
what I mean?
The conflict in the sequel needed to test them in a way that wasn't the exact same. If it's just Fester gets tempted to leave the family again, tempted is being used loosely, then it's like, well, the characters aren't growing. They're making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And they're experiencing the same, or they're learning the same lessons. It's working like a new episode in a sitcom where everything resets at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as a sequel to a movie.
It's called Addams Family Values, but we never get examples of the values. And there could have been an opportunity to tell the story about a new baby being born, raising that baby, and then also the family having to instead of a summer camp, maybe it's the kids starting school again. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been more scenes in the house as the family, since the movie's called Addams Family Values.
Well, I'll go ahead and squash this right now. If it worked as a sequel, it would have been called Addams Family 2. They knew what they were doing. They knew it was a soft reboot. They knew we can't get away with calling this Addams Family 2.
Yeah, and we can't in good conscience say that it works as a sequel podcast, because it doesn't. It's a soft reboot.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a quick 2 X's right there. So the next question is going to be, is it enjoyable / entertaining?
Oh, hell yes.
And yeah, I agree. I think it's also enjoyable / entertaining.
More than the first one.
Yeah, more than the first one. And, even just in comedy terms, it's way funnier. And all the jokes are fun. They really pack a lot of jokes.
And that's the thing you can respect too, is that every line is, and this isn't necessarily good for movies, but for comedies it's good. Every single line is comedic. Every single line is a one-liner. And when they are just dumping exposition, it is funny, or there is some kind of visual gag, or there's some kind of extra element. When Debbie is just spilling her life story at the end, that's the writer realizing, like, this villain doesn't have any development. She's one-dimensional because that's what she needed to be for this story. Well, let's at least make it funny that she's one-dimensional. Why is she doing this? She's just a greedy bitch who like killed her parents because they got her the wrong Barbie. Well, it's exactly, they're not doing the smartest thing, but they're doing what the story needs.
And this might be pretentious to say, but like for me just to assume it, but maybe like in a smarter script, when she's starting to get to know Fester and trying to like woo him, they have a moment where they actually share they're on a date and they share their story.
You don't do that in a movie like this.
I know, but it's like that's like there's that way in the third act they could have just had a battle.
This is the definition of a smart dumb comedy.
Oh, it's definitely dumb, but it's also smart, and it's also just directed well. Like the camera is used as a comedy tool.
The camera's so interesting in the sequel.
You know,
it's almost like a Sam Raimi how they use the camera.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely enjoyable / entertaining from the performances to the comedy to the directing, and it's more enjoyable / entertaining than it is a good story.
Yeah,
you know,
it's enjoyable despite its story.
Yeah. So that sounds like it's going to get a quick 2 checks. So the last question is going to be, does it need to exist? Which is weird based off of the way that we've been voting on this, you know, because it's like, I enjoy it more than the first one. So I definitely think it needs to exist from that standpoint. All things considered with like Raul Julia, like I love seeing his performance. Not to just like say it needs to exist for that reason, but
I think it needs to exist,
yeah.
Or at least I think it should exist because it is also so unique. There's not another comedy out there like this.
Yeah, it's
like the Scooby-Doo movies.
I think it needs to exist just for the comedy and the performances.
I think it needs to exist for the premise.
Yeah, I think it needs to exist as well. It's just a weird movie.
Yeah. It's great.
I don't know, but I mean, it's definitely a good comedy, and it's definitely a good comedy sequel. It's probably just better comedy than it is a comedy sequel because it's not a sequel to anything. It's just you could just watch this movie, and you don't really need to watch the first one.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is more enjoyable because part of, especially watching them back to back, part of what sucks about the sequel is just hitting the same beats again and being like, all right, it's interesting, but it's nothing new. Yeah. So I'm wondering if you're just watching the sequel, Addams Family Values on its own, would probably be the most enjoyable experience.
Yeah. So if you're doing that math at home, it's going to be 4 checks and 2 X's. So it's going to get 1 giant check for worth going back again. First check of the season. Definitely better than Blues Brothers 2000. Thanks as always for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, that you comment below. You can listen to all these episodes. We are streaming on all platforms wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can watch these reviews with video on YouTube at What a Guy Productions. Special shout out to Neely for doing our intro and our outro song. And outside of that, you got anything else to add, Drew?
Wednesday and Pugsley and young Mr. Glicker here, well, they have just never quite latched on to the Chippewa spirit. Nor have some of their little comrades. Isn't that sad?
Yes!
Don't we just hate that?
Yes!
Don't we wish they would just die?
Yes!
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye, 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 bye.